Good afternoon, everyone. Can someone tell me whether my voice is clear and is this screen clearly visible to all of you? आवाज आ रही है सबको? Okay, so welcome to today's session. Today we'll be doing current affairs from 11th to 13th February. Okay, so same methodology. We'll first focus on ASI and finance. So the first news is regarding Employment Provident Fund Organization, telling us about what interest you will be getting in your PF accounts, especially in the financial year 23-24. So this year EPFO has said that we will be providing you 8.25% interest rate for the whatever amount that you have in the PF, and you will be getting 8.25% interest, and this is amongst the highest in 3 years. So it will naturally be a boost to all the people who are having money in PFs. Okay, as all of you know that just because you are an employee of a particular organization, you have to also put some amount into your PF account, then your employer also put amount into your PF account. Okay, so that PF account holds your some portion of the salary, and obviously at the superannuation, that means once you retire, you can obviously take out this PF, but every year you also get interest, and that interest rate is decided by EPFO, and this financial year they have decided to provide you 8.25% interest rates. Okay, so in the previous years, obviously the interest rates have been much lower than this. As you can see, it was 8.10 and 8.15%. okay, and this year 8.25%. so net given the amount of corpus that the EPFO organization has, okay, if EPFO has to provide 8.25 interest rate, so naturally they must also be earning some huge amount of interest on their investments. अब ये लोग करते हैं क्या, आपका PF का जो पैसा है तो उनके पास एक कॉर्पस में है, ठीक है, अब ऐसे आइडल तो पड़ा रहेगा नहीं. The organization must have contacted some agency that will do the investments on their behalf. तो वो जो पैसा लगा रखा है, obviously they will be distributed into different asset classes. For example, some equity, some fixed deposits. तो overall जितना भी EPFO interest कमा रही है, for example, even if they conservatively earn interest of 15%, तो उसमें से 8.25% interest आपको दे रहे हैं, तो anyways वो लोग 6 से 7% तो anyways कमा ही रहे हैं, है ना. तो naturally their overall investments are higher. That's why you are getting 0.10% interest more than the previous year. Okay, so this is what the news says. So effectively, if you see, so this year's income distribution will come out to be 1 lakh crores. Okay, 17.39% higher than the previous one, which was 91,151 crores. And this whole total income distributed within any given financial year have crossed 1 lakh crore for the first time. ठीक है, अगर overall देखें तो. Now let's move on to a business related news. So this is regarding, obviously Byju's company is having various issues with respect to capital structure, because they are having loss and even the valuations have also been declined. Okay, so they are eyeing for cash. They want some portion of their company for others to buy so that they can get cash. Okay, so as you can see, Byju has great learning as well as Epic company within its asset class. Okay, so as all of you know that Byju's were on in buying spree. They were buying various companies. So these companies becomes an asset for Byju also. Okay, so this company, Great Learning and Epic, Byju wants to offload these companies to some buyers. So some buyers can come and provide, some cash for these companies. This is what they were thinking. But especially in this market, when the interest rates are too much high, okay, doing a all cash deal is not very much easy. Okay, and the lenders which have provided loans to Byju's at the initial stage because of its valuation, now they are demanding more cash from them. The Byju's are now not even able to sell their assets, but also even they are not also capable of selling the stock swap. What does stock swap means? बेसिकली होता क्या कि मान लीजिए ये एक बैंक है जिन्होंने आपको पैसा दिया, ठीक है. So instead of giving back the cash, you can give them some percentage of equity, ठीक है. और not your equity, अगर equity आपकी पड़ी हुई है तो at least you can give equity of Great Learning और Epic. कि आप एक काम करो, इसमें मेरा 100% का स्टेक है, you take 50% as a part of my loan because the valuation of that company is, let's say 400 million. But those things are not also acceptable by the institutions that have provided loans to Byju's. Okay, so in this kind of scenario, it is very, getting a little bit difficult for Byju's to raise some amount of money. Especially when institutions are asking for their loans back, especially term B or term loan B type of loans. So what are the various facilities with respect to this? So what exactly is term loan B? What is the difference between the normal loan and between the term loan B? So if you see the various, a very fine criteria is there, that usually a loan that you take is from a bank. But if you try to take a loan from other institutional investors except bank, then that is what is known as term loan B. So other institutional investors, for example, we have pension funds, we have, let's say, insurance funds, insurance companies, or let's say mutual fund house or VC funds. If you have taken loan from these people, okay, so this is what we call term loan B. Okay, तो उनका अब इसमें benefit क्या होता है? If you want loan especially from these guys but not from banks. Banks में क्या होता है? You have to do regular payments. But in this case you have to pay interest first and फिर जो principal है that you can pay at a later date. Nobody is very forcing you to pay that on time. So that's why it is very much easier to repay them. The companies usually think that we'll do some growth, we'll generate some revenue, we'll have some profits, because once we'll grow, we'll generate more profits, and then in the end we can pay the loan back. But the case of Byju's, obviously they are not able to generate profit and they are generating loss, and the maturity date with respect to these loans are also coming. So that's what an issue right now. Okay. So this has been the story, and this story, as you all of know, is developing, but I have mostly included this story just to explain you the concept of stock swap as well as this term loan B. Okay, because this is a little bit related to ESI and finance, so that's what is important. So it will be termed as their income simi. Okay, अब income का whatever they want to do, Next is ESI approves proposal to extend medical benefits to insured retirees. Okay. So obviously, as all of you know, Employee State Insurance Corporation, just like how EPFO provides pension facilities, similarly this ESIC also provides insurance benefits to obviously a set of people having some restrictions with respect to, this income. So recently, medical benefits are extended to retirees also. Previously, whenever the employee were within the employment, such type of benefits were accrued by them. But now they have proposed this extension of medical benefits after retirement also. Okay, but obviously there are some conditions which you need to understand, that they, this insurance will only be provided if you have employment for at least 5 years since April 2012, okay, and you took voluntary retirement on April 1st, that makes 5 years, or after April 1st, that means if you have done more than 5 years. Okay, and only if you are earning wages up to 30,000 rupees only. Okay, if you ज़्यादा करोगे तो naturally you will not be provided benefits. And what's the condition? That 3% per month contribution of the wage ceiling at the time of enrollment you have to pay. You will be provided benefits of it post retirement also. Next is HUDCO. Okay, it's a public sector enterprise. Full form Housing and Urban Development Corporation, currently registered as Housing Finance Company with an NHB, National Housing Bank. Okay, so the news is that they are providing, or they will be financing projects in Maharashtra worth 30,000 crores. This is what the news says. So HUDCO, as all of you know, it mostly is limited to development of housing projects and urban projects. Okay, so it is within this context only that with respect to housing and urban projects worth 30,000 crores, they have signed an agreement with Maharashtra government with respect to financing up to these many projects. And apart from that, HUDCO is also trying to be a little more expansive in nature with respect to their domain. Primarily, they are focusing upon housing and urban development, but right now they are also applying with RBI regarding to be registered as NBFC IFC, which is Infrastructure Finance Company. So for a company from Housing Finance Company to become an Infrastructure Finance Company, naturally the domain will increase. So the financing of projects that were limited to housing and urban development, after becoming IFC, they will extend to what kind of projects? Can anyone tell? अगर आप हाउसिंग से बढ़ के ओवरऑल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर पहुंच जाओगे तो नेचुरली यू विल बी डूइंग much more, or you will be financing much more different varieties of infrastructure projects, starting from road, railways, ports and all those things, flyovers, है ना? So that's what will help in, but obviously the registration process is going on, so whenever the license will be approved, so that will also be a news. Okay, but right now this is the amount of money worth of projects HUDCO will be financing in Maharashtra. Next is gaming companies are innovating to survive 28% GST burden. As all of you know, in the 50th GST Council meeting, GST Council decided to put 28% of the taxation on gaming companies, because of which the stock prices of various gaming companies plummeted. Okay, and now the gaming companies are trying to innovate their products so as to minimize their losses and also generate profits, because otherwise the gaming industry would become unsustainable. Okay, so what they are doing? So if you see clearly, companies trying to offset increased cost by reducing marketing budgets. Okay, major players have already started providing special cashback offers. Some looking to put money into ads, create new users to increase profitability, and others are looking to enhance existing games to increase user engagement. So this is what is happening, but at least for the exam perspective, you just remember that for the gaming, 28% GST rate is there. Next is target of Indian Overseas Bank with respect to expansion of its branches. So IOB says that we'll be opening 88 new branches in 2024. Okay, some little bit features or static features with respect to IOB is it's the 5th public sector lender to reach 1 lakh crore in market cap. It was founded in 1937, Chennai headquarters, and Ajay Kumar Srivastava, MD and CEO. Next news is, primarily relating to revamp of 4 new cities. Okay, so Niti Aayog is primarily focusing upon economic transformation of Mumbai, Surat, Varanasi and Vizag. Okay, so they'll look at comprehensively their overall infrastructure. Okay, and this will it will be an economic transformation, so it will not be related to only infrastructure, but physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and as well as mobility infrastructure. All those things will be taken care of, especially in these 4 cities. This will to make India a developed economy by 2047. So these 4 city names are important, okay, because the apex planning authority is focusing upon it. Mumbai, Surat, Varanasi and Vizag. If you see India's map, Mumbai, Surat, Varanasi and Vizag. ठीक है, ऐसे याद कर लेना. And this is related to Niti Aayog static. That its ex officio chairman is Prime Minister, current CEO BVR Subramaniam. Okay, it was formed in 2015 and it utilizes bottom-up approach with respect to overall policy making. Next is center will regulate e-gaming, proposal of self-regulatory organization rejected. So what happened in this case scenario, in this context, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, they sent a proposal with respect to the gaming industry and they talked about self-regulatory organization. In self-regulatory organization, what happens is all the players of industry, they try to come together and they try to form a regulatory organization which will form various guidelines that needed to be complied with by all the members of e-gaming industry. Basically एक organization जो खुद ने बनाई है आपस में सारे players ने और सारे players आपस में एक agreement decide कर लेते हैं कि इस तरीके से हम लोग business करेंगे और ethically कुछ wrong नहीं करेंगे. तो this is self-regulatory. What is normal regulatory organization? That government makes a regulatory organization that will tell you what standards you need to adopt. तो ये major difference हो गया. So METI provided a proposal to the gaming industry that you think about self-regulatory organization, but वहाँ से जब proposals आए business, e-gaming businesses से, तो they tried to form a self-regulatory structure that were not that much practical in terms of complying with standards, ethical standards. So the minister says the concept of SRO has now been rejected. The government will formulate a regulator that will regulate the e-gaming industry and not the self-regulatory organization. Okay? And even Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State for Electronics, he clearly says that we have said very clearly we don't want SROs that will be controlled by industry. Next is merchant bank Paytm assured of no disruptions. As all of you know that after this Paytm payment bank news or Paytm payment bank penalty imposed by RBI, a lot of merchants obviously who are not aware of the intricacies of what exactly happened. So they were worried that because at every shop that you go, you have a Paytm, QR code. So this naturally will be disrupting the whole economy, at least the news, but the news was about Paytm payment bank, but Paytm merchants do not needs to be, will not be disrupted. So that's what the Paytm company says to these merchants, that such type of operations will not be disrupted because this news is about Paytm payment banks. Okay? So this is what the news says. And this is a little bit information with respect to payment banks. So payment banks are initially started on the recommendations of Nachiket Moore Committee. Okay? So they will be registered as a public limited company under Companies Act. And these are differentiated, not universal banks. That means serving a specific purpose. And the critical criteria with respect to payment banks is that they cannot issue loans, credit cards, cannot accept time deposits or NRI deposits. So with respect to credit, they do not have the RBI hasn't allowed them to issue any credit. So whenever a question comes with respect to what is the primary sector lending criteria for payment banks, what will you give answer? What answer will you guys give? अगर आप लोगों से एक क्वेश्चन पूछा जाए कि पेटीएम बैंक्स का प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग क्राइटेरिया कितना है, लाइक शेड्यूल कमर्शियल बैंक्स का 40% है, तो व्हाट इज द क्राइटेरिया फॉर पेटीएम पेमेंट बैंक्स ऑफ पीएसएल, व्हाट विल यू गाइस से? यस करेक्ट, नो क्राइटेरिया, बिकॉज लेंडिंग अलाउड नहीं है, तो क्राइटेरिया कैसे आ जाएगा? ठीक है, लेट्स मूव ऑन टू नेक्स्ट न्यूज. नेक्स्ट न्यूज, सिंपल न्यूज. Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India says to resolution professionals, share copies of reports to both creditors and debtors. As all of you know, resolution professionals are the people that provide resolution plan with respect to how to revive the company. Whether, first of all, they will decide whether to revive a company or not. Or not, and if reviving, how to revive, what structure the debt will take. बेसिकली होता क्या है, कोई कंपनी अगर बैंकरप्ट हो गई, सो द क्रेडिटर्स who have provided loans to that company, they take that company to the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. Okay, so then IBBI appoint a resolution professional. So resolution professional will try to oversee the balance sheet of the company, and they'll see whether the operations of the company are fine and the industry is relevant. तो वो लोग सोचेंगे कि इस इंडस्ट्री को रिवाइव कर सकते हैं थोड़ा, 1-2 साल तक अगर लोन को एक्सटेंड कर दिया जाए, तो they can start the business altogether and they will generate revenue because the industry in which they are working, that is also working. Okay, and how to revive? तो उस लोन के स्ट्रक्चर को कैसे करेंगे? Obviously they can extend the loan tenure, or they can reduce the interest rates or reduce the compliance at a particular at least in the short term, so that they can function also. But the way the resolution professional is making these resolution plans, okay, what exactly he is seeing, or what is the broad criteria, with broad deciding criteria because of which he came out with this decision, all those reports, the IBBI says, those reports must be shared with creditors as well as debtors. ठीक है, सबको दिखनी चाहिए वो, just to increase the transparency. Okay, so is this clear to all? So let's move on to the next news. CPI inflation at 3-month low of 5.1% in January. And obviously this is a very good sign with respect to inflation in the economy. Because, if inflation continues to persist in the economy, the increase in rate, the policy rate will continue to increase. And, policy rate continue to increase will hamper economic growth, because the amount of liquidity in the economy will also disrupt. So, inflation coming down is a beneficial factor, especially if it is within the domain or within the targeted range of Reserve Bank of India's inflation target. So if you see the CPI, which is the inflation metric or retail inflation, so it is at a 3-month low of 5.1%, and the core inflation, which is CPI combined minus food also minus fuel inflation, you get 3.6%, which is a good sign. Okay, so most of the volatility with respect to inflation will anyways be related to food and fuel. तो उससे ज़्यादा इतना फर्क पड़ेगा नहीं, क्योंकि बहुत short term increase रहता है inflation में. If your core inflation is fine, then at least from the longer perspective, the inflation you can assume that it is in control. ठीक है? And obviously, if you see here, index of industrial production rose to 3.8% in December from 2.4%. What does this tell you? That industrial production is expanding, and this is a good sign, because at least you know that supply is increasing in the economy. So at least supply induced inflation is not there. Demand induced हो सकता है, but demand induced भी anyways will be reduced because of increased interest rates. Okay, so it's a positive sign with respect to the future of 2024. Next news, Reliance becomes the first Indian company to hit 20 lakh crore market cap. ठीक है, Reliance का शेयर 20 लाख करोड़ के मार्केट कैप पर पहुंच चुका है. मार्केट कैप इज व्हाट? We've discussed this ample amount of time. How do you calculate market cap? Market capitalization of any company? Yes, correct. Number of shares into current price. We've also seen one news with respect to 1 trillion market cap. Which conglomerate actually crossed 1 trillion market cap? Just previously we've studied. Does anyone of you remember? Yes, correct. Tata. Correct. Very good. ठीक है, तो ये सब बात याद रखना. So this is a chart with respect to market capitalization. Reliance is at first, TCS, then HDFC, ICICI, Infosys. Okay, these are the top 5 companies in terms of market cap. Next is a important change introduced in the context of MSMEs. Okay, if you see, a new law on payments to micro, small, medium enterprise has caused significant discomfort to organized apparel retailers. So what is the new rule? So the new rule says that whatever you have bought from any MSMEs, ठीक है, ये हो गया एक retailer who buys commodities from these MSMEs, okay, they sell these commodities to customers, okay, in return the retailers get money, and after their cut the payment is also provided to MSMEs. ठीक है, अब होता क्या है, usually what happens is that retailers says to MSME, you just give us the inventory, okay, we'll give you the payment after 2 months or 3 months, or within 2 months and 3 months they also tries to sell the commodity, they get to generate more cash, and then they try to do the payment to MSMEs. और ये एक कैश साइकिल चलती है, ठीक है, ऑब्वियसली इट ट्राइज टू हेल्प ऑल्सो. और MSMEs क्या करते हैं, अगर MSMEs को तुरंत पैसा चाहिए तो वो जो रिसीप्ट दैट रिटेलर्स प्रोवाइड टू देम, दे गिव इट टू द बैंक, ओके, तो उनको फिर ऑपरेटिंग कैश मिल जाता है. बट राइट नाउ व्हाट द गवर्नमेंट सेज दैट इफ the retailers has bought any commodity from these MSMEs, they have to provide the payment for this back to MSMEs within 45 days. ठीक है, और ये तब है if you have any agreement with MSME company. ठीक है, if you do not have any agreement with MSME company with respect to मतलब 1 साल के कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं है with respect to supply of any commodity, तो आपको वो पेमेंट 15 दिन में करनी है. You have to do that payment in 15 days if you do not have any agreement or long term contract. और अगर नहीं करेंगे तो क्या होगा, जो नहीं करेंगे तो जो कंडीशन लगाई है इन्होंने, that is what is causing the disruption. If the retailers are not fulfilling these conditions, the government says those payment that you will be doing to these MSMEs, okay, they will not be counted as expense in your balance sheet. अब इससे क्या होगा, यूजुअली क्या होता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू हैव जनरेटेड सम रेवेन्यू, ठीक है, मान लीजिए आपने 100 करोड़ का बिजनेस किया, 100 करोड़ तो ज्यादा हो गया, 10 करोड़ का बिजनेस मान लो आप, 10 करोड़ का बिजनेस किया, ठीक है, 10 करोड़ का रेवेन्यू जनरेट किया आपने बाय सेल्स, और 10 करोड़ की सेल्स हुई, ठीक है, एंड टू डू दिस सेल्स आप सारी कॉस्ट मिला के, वेदर यू हैव टू डू सम पेमेंट्स टू MSMEs फॉर कमोडिटीज, ठीक है, वो सब पेमेंट मिला के योर कॉस्ट टर्न्ड आउट टू बी 5 CR, ठीक है, तो व्हाट विल बी योर नेट प्रॉफिट, 10 - 5 CR, isn't it? ठीक है, and within this 5 CR obviously there will be some cost like plant का cost, rent, electricity, all those things, but there will be some component of payments to MSMEs, क्योंकि आप पेमेंट करके कमोडिटी ले रहे हो, फिर कमोडिटी बेच के फिर पैसा जनरेट कर रहे हो, है ना, तो वो पेमेंट तो आपका एक्सपेंस हो गया, तो दैट पेमेंट विल बी योर कॉस्ट एंड दैट कॉस्ट विल बी रिड्यूस्ड फ्रॉम द सेल्स. सो द गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग जो पेमेंट आपने MSME को करी है, which is more than 45 days in case of registered or more than 15 days in case of registered, that will not be counted as your what, let's say expense. That means that amount will not be reduced from here. तो इससे देखो दो issues हैं. First issue, the MSME company will say that I had to do payment of, let's say कि इसमें से 2 करोड़ उन्होंने थोड़ा डिलेड पेमेंट कर दिया, ठीक है, तो पहली बात तो 2 करोड़ तो गए, अब 2 करोड़ इसमें से माइनस भी नहीं हो सकते, तो 10 माइनस 3 CR हुआ, तो टोटल इट विल बी 7 CR। तो प्रॉफिट जब आपका केवल 5 CR हुआ है, क्योंकि 2 करोड़ तो एनीवेज आपने दिए ही है, लेकिन आपकी बैलेंस शीट विल शो 7 CR प्रॉफिट, बिकॉज द गवर्नमेंट सेज दीज विल नॉट बी काउंटेड एज एक्सपेंस, क्योंकि ये आपने डिले कर रखी है। तो आपका जो टैक्स बनेगा वो बनेगा 7 CR पे, ना कि 5 CR पे। एंड ऑब्वियसली योर टैक्स लाइबिलिटी will come out to be more as compared to previous 5 CR. So that's why the retailers are saying कि यार ये तो unjustified rule है, हमको सारी चीजें चेंज करनी पड़ेंगी, अग्रीमेंट साइन करवाने पड़ेंगे, तुरंत सब काम करने पड़ेंगे। तो गवर्नमेंट्स इंटेंशन इज फाइन बिकॉज दे वांट MSMEs to get early payments because these retailers used to delay the payments. But obviously this will naturally be disrupting the economy, disrupting the retailers economy for a little while, but after some time it will get smoothened. But I hope you understand what's the new rule has been and how it's going to be impacting. Anything? I hope any confusion to anyone? I hope everybody understands. So let's move on to next section, which is national and state news. Okay, so we'll go a little bit faster. So Uttarakhand forms panel because it's the first state to launch uniform civil code. Okay, so it also has formed a panel with respect to formulating rules of uniform civil code that will be implemented in the state. So the chair is Chief Secretary Shatrughan Sinha. Okay, under Article 44 of Indian Constitution, it has been advised to state to formulate UCC. Okay. So apart from that, earlier Goa is the only state where UCC is implemented. Next is DigiYatra. DigiYatra, as all of you know, it's a contactless, seamless processing of passengers at airports based on facial recognition technology. If you make your ID on DigiYatra platform, okay, and if you have your boarding pass and you can upload it, then there is a special entry line for DigiYatra holders. So you'll scan, and it will be a much more better, let's say, entry point, because normally you will be checked manually by the security personnel. But if you have DigiYatra application and you have your boarding pass also, then naturally the systems will do that checking for you. So this will be a little bit effective. So a little bit details with respect to DigiYatra. So it is run by DigiYatra Foundation, and it is a Section 8 company, which is also not-for-profit company, which is having the shareholders being Airport Authority of India having 26% and rest being distributed among 5 international airports: Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Kochi. Next is Water Pollution Amendment Act, and this is a little bit important in context of sustainable development issues that you have in your syllabus. तो थोड़ा बहुत details जानने में वैसे भी कोई बुराई नहीं, ठीक है? So a little bit details that water is a state subject and center cannot directly pass legislative laws influencing water management. And in this law, this Water Act has been tweaked a little bit. We'll see what actually happened. So the first is, to establish any industry, you need clearance from State Pollution Control Board with regarding, for example, if you are locating any industry just beside any river bank. Okay, so the State Pollution Control Board will give you clearance with respect to whether you will be doing any pollution or not. Okay, so what the amendment says the central government will provide a exemption list तो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट विल गिव exemption list to some of the industries that will allow them to function without taking any approval from state board, state pollution control board. So with respect to chairman of state board, okay, so chairman of state board will be appointed by the state government, but the new bill says that central government will provide the manner in which that person will be appointed. With respect to discharge of polluting matter, okay, under the act says SPCB may issues directions to immediately restrain any activity which is leading to discharge of polluting matter. Okay, but what does the bill says? It prohibits violation of standards regarding pollution, but it also have added this exception which says depositing non-polluting materials on the bank of a stream for reclaiming land is allowed. Basically, river bank is there, and if you put some, let's say, sand over there just to increase the land area that the river has cut more. Okay, for example, let's say this is the river that is coming, and if you want to fill this region with more sand, okay, just to have more river or more land over this place, so that river stream has now become like this. So such type of exemptions are now also allowed now. With respect to penalty, the bill removes imprisonment but has increased the penalty amount from 10,000 to 15 lakh. But the most important thing for all of you is such type of activities, the exemptions that this act has provided with respect to depositing non-polluting materials, and also an exemption with respect to certain categories of industrial plants from obtaining such consent. Okay? Next is Prime Minister Modi will lay the foundation stone for AIIMS Rewari project and will launch Gurgaon Metro project. Okay, so AIIMS Rewari project will cost around 1231 crores and Gurugram Metro project will cost 452 crores. It will obviously be regards to Gurugram expansion of metro. Next is National Exit Test. So this national exit test is related to, final year MBBS students. So what the government or what the National Medical Council or National Medical Commission is thinking, that they are trying to, develop a all India level exit exam, which will allow all the MBBS holders to, once you clear this exam, then you are eligible for practicing medicine in India. ठीक है? अभी क्या होता है? अभी तो हर एक कॉलेज में individually you have this final year MBBS exam. Okay, but now they are pondering over national exit test. Next is IIT Bhubaneswar is thinking about this 100 startup or 100 cube startup initiative, which says that 100 startups of 100 crore each by 2036 they will be developing. Okay, so with respect to that, they will have upgraded research center, entrepreneurship park, so that the people who will be developing these startups will have an ecosystem so that they can opt for these startups. And with respect to that, they have also done MOUs with 15 companies to build strategic collaboration. ठीक है? अब देखो ये सारी चीजें आप कैसे लिखोगे? How these things will help you? Such type of examples you need to tell whenever you're dealing with a question on education, if it will arise, especially in the descriptive one. Okay, आप बोलोगे कि in terms of skill development or in terms of, let's say, improving education from current reality perspective, because it has always been an issue we have seen in ample amount of time that colleges are not teaching content relevant to what the industry is demanding. But as you can see, because to increase startups, various educational institutions are signing MOUs with various companies, and this will not only provide their expertise, but it will also be a long-term commitment or long-term collaboration with respect to not only startups, but it will also be a placement collaboration also. अब कंपनीज अपना कोलैबोरेशन केवल स्टार्टअप के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में तो करेंगे नहीं, और मान लीजिए केवल उनके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी किया तो ऑल दीज पीपल हु आर देयर इन दिस, they are developing startup of their own, they will also be much more trained with respect to whatever expertise these companies have. So naturally they will be more inclined to place these guys, and this will incentivize the whole ecosystem. So that's what you need to write, especially in the education answer whenever you're dealing with, okay, that how India is improving in context of education and skill development. Next is Odisha government to give ₹1,000 to all families under public distribution system. Okay, and they've also launched Swayam scheme. Okay, that will provide loans to rural youth having family income less than 2 lakh and they are in age of 18 to 35 years. Okay, and obviously this is for initiating new business venture, like most of the schemes that we guys have, especially at the central level, है ना? But for states, such type of schemes name and the amount is very much important. Next is 286th Law Commission report recommends creation of an epidemic plan to address epidemics. And obviously this is much more in context of COVID-19 when it happened. Obviously the state at the onset were thinking that they were prepared, but in the second wave a little bit scrambling happened, okay, and we realized that we needed an upgraded version of laws that can deal with epidemics effectively. So that's what also the Law Commission recommended, that we need a new standard of operating procedure that can deal with these epidemics effectively. And it also highlights the limitation posed by the Act of Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. So you can see more than 100 years old act we are dealing with respect to control and prevention of epidemic diseases. So the statue of first Chief of Defence Staff, late General Bipin Rawat, will be unveiled or have been unveiled in Dehradun by Defence Minister. Okay. Next is international news. So this Israeli company, chip making company, Tower, okay, so they have signed a MOU with respect to $8 billion plant in India. Okay, so they will be starting a 8 billion worth of chip fabrication plant in India. Then in Iceland, Sundnukur volcanic eruptions have been continuing. Then we have news related to IITs expanding their campuses in Abu Dhabi, IIT Delhi campus in Abu Dhabi, and IIT Madras campus in Zanzibar and Tanzania archipelago. So most importantly, this is what you need to remember, because this type of questions are coming in various examination. Even in CSIR these type of questions came. Okay, तो कौन सा कैंपस का कौन सा कॉलेज का कैंपस किस कंट्री में जा रहा है, you all need to be aware of these. Another news with respect to UPI, that it has been launched in Sri Lanka as well as in Mauritius too. Okay, this you will tell especially in internationalization of India's payment systems. Utilize such type of examples. ठीक है, इसके अलावा you write about UAE, Singapore, France, and all those places where UPI has been expanded. ठीक है, याद रखिए इन सब चीजों को, because the question can naturally, अब देखो इतने सारे countries में ये सब expand हो गया, तो naturally you will be provided a set of countries and they can easily ask you which one of the following countries the UPI hasn't been expanded. तो you'll have to identify. ठीक है, तो उस हिसाब से प्रिपेयर करके रखना. Next is 7 out of 8 Indians who faced death row in Qatar have returned home. Okay, so they were all booked under, espionage, but they have been returned back home. Next is Maruti Suzuki are now planning to make electrical aircopters. Okay, so these aircopters are obviously, bigger than drone and smaller than helicopter. So they'll be hosting pilot as well as 2 people on board, like a air taxi. Okay. So this is what the Maruti Suzuki is aiming for, and that's what they said in Bharat Mobility Global Expo New Delhi. Okay, and obviously अब ऐसा तो है नहीं कि बोल दिया तो बस तुरंत कर ही देंगे. This will take at least 5 to 10 years to form. Okay, और उससे पहले we all need regulations with respect to drones, movement. अगर drones movement का, if we have clear cut regulations by the government, so all naturally it will pave way for other type of unmanned aerial vehicles or even manned aerial vehicles. Then MOU news. So JSW Group plans to invest 40,000 crores in Odisha to set up electric vehicles facilities. Okay, the location is Naraj, Cuttack district. Next is EU reaches agreement on spending rules. Okay, so if you closely look over here, the new rules will enable EU countries to invest in their strength while consolidating their public finances. Limit countries' debt to 60% of GDP and public deficits to 3%. अगर इसको आप देखोगे, इस तरीके की न्यूज़ को अगर आप देखोगे, तो what will you tell that अगर इसका कोई इंडियन काउंटर पार्ट है सच टाइप ऑफ रूल्स के लिए? Everyone? Is there any act do we have in India that limit, government debt to these many conditions? Yes, Raja, correct. FRPM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. So similarly, even EU has this agreement now, okay, where EU countries will limit their debt to 60% and public deficit to 3%. Okay. Next is MOU between central government and Jindal Stainless Limited on defense deal. Okay. So agreement on MSME Technology Center, Visakhapatnam and Jindal Stainless Limited for launch of missiles and satellites. The Indian Ocean Conference happened in Perth, Australia. Okay. Then we have India and Peru to begin 6th round of free trade agreement. Okay, so these free trade agreements are also very much important, just like the news of UPI expansion. Similarly, the news of FTA expansion is also very much important, because the government is primarily and even in mission mode, they are focusing upon expansion of India's trade agreements as well as India's digital stack. So even with Peru, we are discussing free trade agreement. And what's the major issue over here is this tariff concessions on gold will be the most challenging issues. Because as all of you know, that Peru is a mining rich nation and a leading producer of gold, silver, copper and zinc and lead. Okay, so naturally they will be providing, if we have free trade agreement, so import of all these commodities will increase in India. Okay, but as all of you know, because the government put, government put duties on imports, especially the physical gold, because the people naturally import physical gold a lot, and they have introduced sovereign gold bonds to just avoid that. But if they start FTA without taking care of the duties, the import of all these commodities will naturally increase, क्योंकि अब तो clear cut mechanism मिल जाएगा. ठीक है? So right now the government is actually talking about that only. Then we have this, in context, similar context, we have this India UAE FTA, where gold imports from UAE, India's second largest gold supplier, has doubled in calendar year 23 compared to 22. So this gives a reminder to you that how FTA can increase imports in the country. Because we have this FTA with UAE, you can realize that how gold import has increased. Next is India UAE Inc. Pact on linking digital payment platforms, trade and energy. तो payment platform का तो old news होगी, है ना? But apart from that, they've also done MOU, with respect to power trade as well as interlinking of or infrastructure, port infrastructure development. Then we have defense, science and tech. So this galaxy without stars have been identified, named Nube, okay, by Maria Montes, Spanish astronomer. Okay, so as all of you know, that we live in solar system where we have sun as a star. This sun is like a various different suns in the galaxy called Milky Way galaxy, है ना? But, and this is what we assume, that every galaxy must have some stars, but we find a galaxy without any star, and they've named it Nube. Okay. Next is Serum's HPV vaccine is non-inferior to Gardasil. So the most important thing is you just check the name of the vaccine and what does it do. Okay, we have this international vaccine known as Gardasil, and we have this indigenous vaccines named Ceravac. So first of all, they are both equal, and obviously this is not inferior than this. Okay, and it also has multiple usage too, because as you can see, Ceravac is performed on both boys and girls for 9 to 14, whereas Gardasil vaccine is for 15 to 26 years, only for women. So it has more utilization also. Next is Navy Chief inaugurates new defense system known as Precision Approach Radar. ठीक है? अब ये important कैसे बनेगा? They can easily ask you the full form of this. Okay, so Precision Approach Radar at INS Utkarsh in Andaman Nicobar Islands has been inaugurated by Navy Chief. Okay, so what is the utility of this? It will enable highly accurate horizontal and vertical guidance to land an aircraft safely in low visibility conditions. अब aircraft carrier पर plane land कराना is not an easy task. Okay, but with the utilization of this precision approach radar, you can do so. Okay. Okay. Next is IIT Delhi startup develops new body care tech. The technology name is GlycoClear, which they say they ensure clear and healthy skin. Just remember the name of the technology and the name of IIT. Then we have Event Horizon Telescope, which is responsible for capturing the first image of black hole. We have sports news. The first news is regarding host India dominates BIMSTEC aquatic meet. Okay, so this is with respect to swimming competition, especially in context of BIMSTEC nations. So if you see the BIMSTEC full form, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. So it's a cooperation of all the countries mostly in the Bay of Bengal region. And this BIMSTEC was launched because the SAARC grouping, especially in South Asia, was defunct. That means not functioning. Okay, so these are the countries in here which all of you needs to be aware of. Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand. Okay, and with respect to news, India won 54 medals, 19 gold, 27 silver and 8 bronze. Where was the location? Because India was the host, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee swimming pool. Harsh Saroha won the Best Swimmer Award in men's section, and Maria Andelko of Thailand was declared Best Swimmer in women's section. Next is Asia Cup winner, Qatar. Okay, and this is with respect to football. So Qatar defeated Jordan by 2 goals. So 3-1 was the final score. Next is Roxadustat. Okay, it's a drug used for treatment of anemia, has been declared as banned in sports because it increases red blood cells, that increases performance. So this was utilized by Simona Halep. Okay, so she has also been banned with respect to International Tennis Integrity Agency. Okay, she is a Romanian player and also former world number 1. So ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup, Australia won. Okay, so the World Cup was happening in South Africa and Quina Mafaka has been named as player of the tournament. And unfortunately, this is the 3rd time an Indian team has lost with Australia. So we've lost in World Test Championship, we've lost in ODI World Cup final, and we've also lost in Under-19 World Cup Summit. कोई नहीं, अपना टाइम भी आएगा, कभी तो जीतेंगे. चलो, let's move on. International High Jump Gala Elmos 2024. So the national record holder in high jump Tejaswini Shankar won top prize in this high jump gala. Okay, which was happening in Belgium. So in Chennai Open, Sumit Nagal won his 5th challenger level singles title by outplaying Italian Luca Nardi. Then we have 75th Stranja Memorial Tournament in context of boxing. So Uzbekistan Sabina Babulova won by defeating Nikhat Zareen. However, Amit Pangal and Sachin, they both claimed gold for India. Okay. Next is Education Ministry join hands to promote football with FIFA. Okay. So what they will do, they will distribute 11 lakh football in 17 districts of Odisha under the Footballs for School initiative. Then we have L&T Mumbai Open, tennis tournament at CCI, in which Darja defeated Storm Hunter in the final. Lastly, ITF Masters Tennis Tournament, Sonal and Mansi won the tournament. Last section with respect to obituaries and important days. So, renowned artist A. Ramchandra died in Kerala. He was known for monumental canvases, sculptures and paintings. Okay. He also received Padma Bhushan in 2005. 11th Feb is known as International Day of Women and Girls in Science. ठीक है, ये याद करके रखना. This is very important because I hope all of you are very much aware that how much government is talking about women, especially in STEM areas. है ना? Budget में भी बात हुई. Even ASO survey particularly talks about women in STEM. So such type of days you should be very much aware about. Next is record runner Kelvin and his Rwandan coach. They both died in car accident in Kenya. And the last news, National Women's Day, 13th February 24. Okay. And this is obviously marking the 145th birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu, Nightingale of India. Okay. So this is all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And we'll continue to do first of all, these 3 to 4 news. Okay. 4-day news, especially until we'll cover all the backlog. So tomorrow also by 10:30 we will do news. Okay. And most probably it will be related to 14, 15 and 16. And we'll be informing you with respect to that. So Priya, with respect to how many month of current affairs, so with respect to phase 1, if you're focusing upon especially anything apart from ESI and finance, so such type of news at least 2 to 3 months is sufficient. Okay. But if you're focusing upon ESI finance, so at least 6 months ka current affairs to is must. Okay, if you're thinking about scoring good marks. Anything else? Yes, correct. Jan to July. Chalo. Thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Till then, keep on revising these current affairs. ठीक है? Daily revise करते चलो. एक बार lecture में हो गया, एक बार अलग से revise कर लो. And you will then need to revise it in whenever the exam will come. तो फिर वो 3 revision हो गए. और इतना ही चाहिए होता है याद करने के लिए. ठीक है? So thank you.